I thank God that I don't have to brag about how much I actually work. I think it's one of the strangest things that I see, particularly in high stress, high competitive environments like academia. Could be even within things like law or any of these professions. There's a sort of bragging culture that goes on about demonstrating how many hours that you actually put in, the sort of macho language. If you look at medicine, for example, people brag about how many hours that they actually put in their internship and then they survived and got through. To me, it was never really emphasized in the way that I grew up. And I thank God that was an important part of how we grew up, is that our life was never fulfilled through work. And my parents did a fantastic job about not demonstrating that work was the most important thing in our life. It was always other things that were really stressed in our life. Things like nature, going for walks, things like spending time with family and friends, things like having a Sunday dinner or a Sunday breakfast. Breakfast after church was a really big thing in our house. I don't go to church anymore, but it was always a really big thing. And all of those moments were really important to us as people. It sort of led us to believe and feel. My dog's going ham right now, looking at the squirrel. Going ham. It really never was an important part of our life to think about how many hours that we actually put in terms of the work. And even when I was in graduate school, the people that I worked with, they never stressed the hours that you put in, although that was a necessary condition. It was always about the particular idea, and that's why I gravitated towards working with the people that I ended up working with, because it was never about the work. It was never about how to demonstrate that you're somehow successful through putting in more hours and all of that sort of cultural aspect of doing the things that we end up having to do. It was always the idea is put on a pedestal. How do we make this a little better? How do we make this more interesting? How do we actually read the ideas and think about the ideas and ponder about the ideas? And if you take that part away, right, the number of hours that you put in, all of a sudden, and you just focus on just the idea itself, it really doesn't matter so much about the number of hours that you actually put in. Sometimes it's an extraordinary amount, and sometimes it's very little. And that's often the way that this works if you're thinking about things. My favorite picture of an academic, there's kind of this meme that's online, and somebody that's coming up, or a theoretical physicist, is somebody that's laying in a couch. And that is the way that they imagine a theoretical physicist. They're just laying there thinking of ideas. Now, I know that's completely not the truth, but it's the idea behind it, that the thinking is more important than the actual actions behind it. And so I want you to really stress that and think about that. I know that there's a lot of hours always involved, and we're well aware I've accomplished a few things in my life, but mostly it's about thinking about the idea to make sure that you're doing a good job. And if the idea is put on the pedestal instead of the work itself, then all of a sudden things change. You prioritize in a different way. You think about, how do I make sure that I am going to live a healthy life so that every day I can get up and do the good things that I need to do? And it's not the number of hours that I put in, but it's really about making sure that I have healthy longevity. So I get back up and I continuously are able to do the things that I need to do. It's a completely different story that is told. I mean, ultimately, the way that I think about this is that, how is it that I want to be viewed? And both ways are perfectly fine. And both ways people will say that one way is more successful than the other. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day. And that's what I often think about is when I'm older, what do I want to be? Do I want to be known for somebody that was highly prolific and has all of these ideas, and then there's all these kind of random people that know who I am and what I'm about, which is kind of partly true. They kind of can see those things because that's what you wrote about, or that's what you talked about, or that's what you've done. Or do you want to be known with the people that are close to you? And it's this trade-off that we actually make. It's the more global versus local trade-off that we make. And I think, and at least in my view, making sure that I'm always there for the people that are nearest to me, because ultimately that's who I care about the most, me personally, is more important than thinking about the global impact that I have and all of the prolific natures that I have to do. And for me, I get very little energy through all of that other stuff because that's not how I was raised. That's not part of my DNA. But I know many other people feel that way, and they get a ton of energy from working harder and putting in more hours and all of that stuff. I know collectively, on average, I don't think human beings do that very well, but I know that there's some people out there that actually do. They love that, but that's not me. And so I have to find what works for me, and hopefully you find what works for you, and you realize that we're all pretty darn good at any given moment. I'm gonna try that. There's no shadow. We're all pretty damn good at any moment. And we have to realize it's all about what's going on in here and less about what's going on out there. And once you figure that out, no matter what you're going through, you often have a good sense of self. And it's the other thing I wanted to think about, and I wanted you to know, is I'm always insecure. I always feel like I don't have a good sense of self, but I'm working on it. I'm trying every day. I don't think I'm ever going to improve in it. It's like my golf score or my swimming speed. It never gets any better. But I'm going to keep trying every day, because that's ultimately what goes on in life, is making sure that you feel good, you're happy every day, and you recognize that it's a good day when the sun is shining on you. All right, take care and have a wonderful day.